Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Your Fave Film Critic. Hosted by, starring, produced by your favorite film critic, me, Dominic Griffin, the one and only. So, welcome to the new episode of the podcast. We've got some stuff to talk about today. Not a ton of stuff. I don't think this is going to be like one of the longer episodes, but we've got some stuff to talk about. Hope everyone's doing good. I'm recording this on Leap Day. It is February 29th. It's a leap year, and I don't think about the fact that leap years exist until one happens. Like I know some people whose like birthday is a leap year day, and that's like always kind of interesting to me, the idea of like, oh, you actually can't celebrate your birthday for like only once every 4 years, and it's like not really, but I just think that's interesting. There's a lot of things about leap years that I think are fascinating, but it's one of those things that like it happens and I'm like, oh yeah, this year there's an extra one. And I don't know, I was reading some of I almost said the lore, but I don't know, like the superstitions about leap year days and how ultimately you should try to take a leap year day to do things that you otherwise like wouldn't get a chance to do, like almost treating it like it's an extra day you've been given. But like I didn't do that today. I don't know anyone else who did either. There's one thing I want to talk about real quick though before we get into like the pod proper. I'm not certain that it'll be out by the time this episode is out, but if it is, I will link to it in the description below because I'm very excited about it. But it's sort of like an impromptu sort of thing that happened. So before I started this podcast, before I started doing this, it's only been like 6 months, 8 months, something like that, since like the summer. Before that, I never had my own podcast before. The first time I ever was on a podcast, like semi-regularly, was I got invited to be the fourth co-host on the podcast Late Fees with my friends Justin, Eric, and Pat. And it was a really cool honor at the time. This happened during lockdown. I'd been a big fan of Late Fees, the pod, for like a while. And I loved all three of those guys in general. And they asked me to guest on an episode because they were like, Cam, their former fourth chair, had moved on to do some other stuff. And their plan was to do like a rotating, guest star deal. Like every episode would have a different, temporary Cam replacement. And they asked me to do an episode. And I thought that was like cool. I was like, oh yeah, I'd love to be on. Like that feels like super honored, And we recorded this episode and it was like so much fun. It felt so natural. And like, I felt so, I'd been suggested by friends before to start a podcast and I never got into the idea of podcasting because I'm not someone, like I've said in the past, who listens to a lot of them myself and stuff. There's like a few, like I said, that I like, or a few people I know or specific topics. So the idea of doing my own, I was like, what would I even do? I don't know. I don't know that anyone would want to hear that. I just didn't see the appeal of it. But doing the pod with the guys, it was so much fun that I never even conceptualized who was ultimately going to hear it. And I didn't even care. It was just really fun to do. It was just a fun thing to have. So when they asked me to actually just join the show and just be the fourth co-host, I was like, fuck yeah, of course. And it was a lot of fun. And it was one of the better things in my life at the time, during that time, just because we weren't all able to really socialize the same way we used to. And doing the show with the guys was just really cool. You know what I mean? It was it was a really welcome thing into my life. We ended up sort of ending the show and then relaunching it as Triple Beam Streams. It was going to be a kind of different concept and sort of move away from what Late Fees had become, which was we would have to have these themed episodes where you'd watch a bunch of movies leading into the recording of the pod. It's a lot of time and energy to do, and it ends up making those short-term watch projects feel more like work in a way, and like it ends up being less fun. So like we kind of like, long, what's the, here lies late fees, long live, the new thing or whatever. I'm totally fucking up the phrase. Like the king is dead, long live the king, that type of thing, whatever. We relaunched the podcast as something new. We called it Triple Beam Streams. It was the same 4 guys, same general like energy, but just like, we wanted the concept to be a little bit different. And it was still, like I said, really a blast. We had a few episodes that were like really, really fun, but ultimately like it really got going once like outside opened back up, so to speak. Like I'd gone back to my day job. All 4 guys, the other 3 guys all live in LA, but like I live out here, and like it just got difficult for us to really like stick to any kind of an upload schedule or anything really. So we just kind of stopped doing it. Not even like there's no animosity or anything like that, or even a thing where we were like, this is over, we have to stop. It was hard to ever find time, so we just didn't. And like we all still talk every day anyway, so like the idea that there was no longer an audience for these conversations didn't even seem to like really matter, because like we continued having them just amongst each other. But earlier in the week or last week, Justin had the idea of doing like a high school reunion episode. Like it's kind of like a one-shot deal where we got back together and we recorded an episode, Triple Beam Streams, with video, which we've never done before. And it should be out today. I'm not sure if it'll be out before I put this episode out or not, but like if it's out, there'll be a link for it in the description below. And then whenever it is out, I will add the link later. And I'll post it to my socials and stuff like that. But it was really fun recording with the guys again. It was like the highlight of my week. It was a really fun episode. And it kind of reminded me that like I've been doing this pod by myself. This is like all me, as any of you listeners are super aware, obviously, because there's no one for me to bounce off of. So sometimes I just am bouncing off of the walls of my own mind. But I forgot how much like fun it is doing a pod with like your homies, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, it was really, really fun. I don't know what the future is going to hold for this, if we're going to kind of come back or how often we're going to do it or whatever, but I definitely want to do more. I know the boys want to do more. Maybe we'll start just checking in every once in a while, like the Truffaut's Antoine Doinel movies, or like Linklater and the Sunrise trilogy. We'll just kind of check in periodically and be like, what's been happening in between, So I guess like technically this pod would be like our stolen kisses, or our before sunset, I think is kind of where we're at with it. But I'm just really excited, and like I'm stoked for people to see and hear it and all that stuff. And like I just love those guys so much, and it's like such a cool thing to be able to like make stuff together with them. They're all wonderfully talented individuals in their own right, but I don't know, all 4 of us together always just feels like real right. It feels very like we formed like a very special kind of Voltron, and I'm always super stoked to be one of the lions in that. So that'll be out either while you're listening to this or very soon thereafter, so keep an eye out. And then, keep an eye out for the future, obviously. I think we're going to do more. It just felt right. It was really cool that when we were recording, I don't think any of us realized like how long it had been since we did one. And then trying to mentally separate, like, well, we talked about this, but oh no, that was not on a podcast. That was in the group chat. It was not a conversation that you all were privy to. So it was just entertaining, and it was really nice. And like I said, to be quite honest, I love doing the pod by myself, and I do like that since it's just me, there's a level of autonomy to it. Like I don't have to schedule anything with anyone. It's hard for me to schedule things with myself. So I like this format, and I'm gonna stick with it, obviously. But it's a reminder that like most people that do podcasting do it in groups and with friends and guests and stuff, and it's very fun. It's I think why a lot of people get into it is like, oh, me and my friends are gonna just be clever and interesting, and you guys are gonna listen to it. I feel like that's a different kind of like impetus to start a show than like, I'm just gonna talk and you guys are gonna listen to me. I feel like it requires a level of the opposite of wellness, I think, to commit to it. But like, I don't know, I've gotten kind of used to it, and it feels right, and people seem to dig it. So we're gonna, who knows, maybe by the summer I'll crack and there'll just be like a I'm sorry. I just imagine like me adding a co-host, but it's like not anyone else that I know knows. Just some random guy who just becomes like my like band leader. It's just gonna be a dude with like an NPC, like a little drum machine. And then like 3 months later, I reveal that it's just me, and I just like have been pitch shifting the voice so that I'm not alone. Or like I'll do like an AI thing. I guess we'll do like I'll talk, but then I'll make the AI make him sound like Don Rickles or something. I got options. It's cutting edge technology out there now. So yeah, Triple Beam Streams high school reunion episode. It's out there, or it's about to be. So check it. All right, let's get into the meat of the pod. We're gonna start with the news. I have a handful of newsy items to talk about. The first thing I want to talk about is the ongoing mystery surrounding who yelled at Rebecca Ferguson. So Rebecca Ferguson, very talented actress. We love her in the Dune movies. We love her in the Mission Impossible films. I don't think I've ever seen her in something I didn't like her in, so she's great. She was being interviewed on the Dune Part 2 press tour, and she mentioned working on a film where the lead actor was really terrible to her and like raised his voice and yelled at her and like berated her in front of the whole cast and crew, and had like, essentially just berated her to tears. And it was like something she just never wanted to deal with again, never wanted to work with that person again. And within minutes of that clip going around the internet, people were like, okay, but who the fuck was it? She doesn't have a very storied filmography here. There's only like a handful of people it could have been. And I was pretty disconcerted to see how many people leapt to, it must have been Tom Cruise. Cause I was like, but she did 3 fucking movies with that guy. Like they seem to really get along and stuff. Like I don't think if it had been him that she would continue, that she would have done 3 Mission Impossible movies. Like, so that just seems crazy to me. And then, so I think people kind of essentially narrowed it down to like 4 core suspects. And it was, Jake Gyllenhaal, Hugh Grant, The Rock, and Michael Fassbender. And The Rock was the only person who like really spoke up about it, because like he basically spoke up to kind of be like, you know, I'm really proud of Rebecca for speaking up like that, and I want to know who it is so I can have a conversation with that man. Or I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember what his actual post said, but I'm so used to how The Rock sounds on social media that I'm just guessing he just kind of put on that sort of like The Rock tone, like I'm gonna go beat his ass and eat some blueberry waffles or whatever the fuck. But so it's like, okay, it's not The Rock. Although I did think it was funny, there was a couple of hours on the timeline on Twitter where like people were sharing The Rock's reaction to this, but with the like that article about OJ Simpson talking about how he hates to ride like public transit in LA because he could be right next to the killer. And it was like, dude, I think some people are also using the hot dog suit Tim Robinson for like, you know, we're trying to figure out who did this, but I don't think it was The Rock. I felt like some of the arguments for it being Jake Gyllenhaal sort of made sense, but then I found there's a video of them joking around on the press tour for the movie they did. So it's like, I don't think it was that. I feel like whoever it was not someone that she would have been publicly cool with after that. So I've seen some compelling arguments for being Hugh Grant, which is sad, I guess, because he always seemed cool, but I don't know him personally. I don't know any of these people personally, but I think it's actually a lot more likely that it's Michael Fassbender, because I believe the movie they did together was The Snowman. And it's one of the worst fucking movies like ever made in the history of movies. And also the production itself was really kind of like shitty and like terrible. So I would not be surprised, and this is not me saying this to like absolve Michael Fassbender, obviously, but it would not be surprising to me that like if there was a movie she made where she was going to get screamed at like that, that it would happen on a set that was so badly run from. And I mean, I don't know what the day-to-day working conditions were like necessarily, but just having seen the movie, and it's very clear that like, I believe the director Thomas Alfredson said that they only shot like 70 or 80% of the movie. Like, I'm sorry, of the script. Like there was one of the reasons the movie is so poorly edited and so frustrating is because they just did not get all their like shot. They didn't get all their pickups and stuff. So like, I wouldn't be surprised if they had a movie like that. And it's like, it's not like The Snowman is like a emotional tone poem or something where like, it's more nebulous and you can kind of make it in the editing room and you can just kind of feel it out and stuff. It's a fucking murder mystery. It's like a procedural. It's based on a fucking book. Like you kind of need all the pieces for the mystery to plug together. So like the fact that movie is just missing crucial shit and just shots and stuff is just like so unnecessary. really horrendous movie. And Michael Fassbender, if it was him, it's pretty fucked up, and fuck him. But like, I did kind of like how many people. I mean, it's Twitter, so some people were definitely kind of like performatively caring about this. You know what I mean? Just because like, hey, this is the topic of the day. Got to have a take. Got to be a part of this. Got to be included for engagement. But I did feel like a lot of it was pretty sincere. Like, she's a really talented actress. She's got really great energy. You know what I mean? When we see her like on the red carpet and we see her promoting stuff, she always seems really cool. I don't think I've ever heard any like bad stories about her. So I don't know. I kind of liked that everybody was like getting together. It kind of reminded me of a few months ago when there was that really shitty fucking like potentially AI written article about Martin Scorsese and how his movies are not as successful superhero movies or whatever, and people were just like looking for the guy that wrote it and couldn't find him. You know what I mean? I like a light version of internet mob mentality, not like the full on thing where people get carried away, but I like a little bit of it, a soupçon of pitchforks and torches. Like it makes me think about the Michael, the librarian, like the really sweet guy who's like talks about the library. He's like sort of our generation's LeVar Burton now on TikTok. He's a really sweet guy. He has great energy. He's always like posting all this like very positive stuff, and there's kind of a rawness to him too, even though he's like very, very positive. You can tell that he's got like, he's been through stuff, and he struggles with his own mental health, and he puts out so much good energy in the universe. And there's like someone on Twitter posted one of his videos and was like, there's something about him. He has like a dark energy about him. I can't believe you guys don't see it. And everybody was like, what? This is like the one fucking person in all of public life right now that I think most people can agree is like, seems like a pretty decent human being. Like if something really horrendous came out about him, that would suck, obviously. But I'm just saying, like, his whole vibe to me seems largely really positive, and people were just like, the people were ready to fucking kill for this guy. And some of the people I think were genuinely really hurt by seeing it, because it's like, hey, if this kind of like innocent being, pure soul library guy can be spoken of as being having a dark energy around him and being like untrustworthy, then it's like, who can we trust? Who can we believe in? Who can we kind of look up to? So I think on some level, people were very frustrated at the idea that there could even be any impropriety around him, you know? But some people I saw posting making content about it and stuff, and I was like, I know this person has never given a flying fuck about anything this guy has said or done. I know they don't care about the library system. They don't care about books. They don't care about literacy. They don't care about kids. They don't care about any of the stuff. They just see that there's someone they can pile on, and they're just going to pile on them. And I started to see that when I saw some people, basically he ended up posting he was like leaving his job at the library, like to focus on other things. So people were like, I can't believe you guys drove him away from like his dream job and stuff. And like, he's now working for like PBS. Like he's like the PBS TikTok. He's like their host for stuff there, which is cool. But people were really kind of taking it a bit too far, you know? And they started talking about, people just like piling on that lady. Like she had to like lock her Twitter and like change her like the link in her bio to I'mSorryMichael.com, which is not a real website, but she was just clearly trying to like make amends. I still think she was wrong as shit for what she did, but people are getting a bit weird with it, like a little bit extra with it. And then Michael came out and posted something saying like he forgives her and like, you know, it's not a big deal and these things happen. And then people were still like, well, we don't forgive her. And I was like, okay. The first hour of seeing people post stuff like that, I was like, that's fair. Some people are still incensed, yada, yada. But I started seeing people posting it where I was like, I don't even remember you posting about this initially. I feel like you're just, again, looking for a reason to just fucking go at people that you don't know. It's just weird, you know? But like I said, I like a little bit of it. I like a little bit of the manhunt for who yelled at Rebecca Ferguson, but like, it almost certainly will reach a fever pitch where like, they'll reveal who it is, that person will apologize, they'll come out and make some kind of like, you know, PR thing, and maybe they'll make a meet good or something in public or whatever, and then people will still be like, I don't care, I still want him to die. And it's just like, okay, just relax a little bit, people. So that was one thing that happened this week. These two things are kind of entwined, but I'll start with the first one. The trailer for Horizon and American Saga came out the other day. It is the new Kevin Costner film. It's a Western. It is part one of a multi-part film. So it's like a 3-hour movie. It comes out in June. or part 1 comes out in June, and I think part 2 comes out in the fall. And they've already started filming a part 3. So ultimately it's supposed to be a 4-part movie that when it all is said and done is going to be like 12 hours. And it's sort of about the history of the expansion of America and people going out west initially after the Civil War and stuff like that. Or during, or whatever. I don't fucking remember American history very well. I'm not going to pretend. But anyway, it's a fucking giant, expensive Western directed by, starring, co-written by Kevin Costner, produced by, co-financed by Kevin Costner. So the deal with this is Kevin Costner, there was a period of time where he was a huge movie star, and it was like the late 80s, very early 90s. Kevin Costner was like an A-lister. And then he hit a point, I think, where he just kind of like doing his own thing. He mostly what he likes is Westerns. And he kind of like, I don't want to say that he like fell into obscurity because that's not quite accurate, but just he stopped being as big of a deal. He stopped being in as many things. Then a few years ago, or however many years ago it's been, he came back in a big way by being in Yellowstone. The Taylor... Fuck, I almost said Taylor Lautner. That is not who I meant. Oh, what the fuck is the guy's name? The guy that fucking wrote... God damn it. He was an actor on... I'm fucking pulling this up. I'm sorry. He was an actor who was on Sons of Anarchy... And then he like was also a screenwriter, and he wrote Sicario. And now he's like a TV mogul. He has like 9 shows. His name, Taylor Sheridan. Fuck, I'm so sorry that took me that long. Taylor Sheridan went from being like an actor to like being, he wrote a couple of things to he's written like 900 things. And now there's like the Yellowstone like cinematic universe of like this Western TV show. Anyway, Kevin Costner was like the star of it. It was a big deal. It became a humongous hit in the way that shows on CBS only can, because of just the wide audience that those shows reach of people that like other streaming platforms and networks don't really quite cater to, mostly just like older people. And like he became big again, and like he basically took all of the cachet and I guess money he earned from making that show, left the fucking show at the height of its popularity, and was like, this is my chance to make my Western. So, or one of my Westerns. So Horizon is a movie that he originally started trying to make in 1988. So that's how far back this goes. I was 2 when it came out. I am 37. So 35 years ago, he started trying to make this movie. And then I guess the closest he came to making it after that was like in 2004-ish, after he made the movie Open Range, like for Disney. That was the time where it was like, okay, Open Range turned out pretty good. You know, we showed that people still want to see Westerns with me and Robert Duvall and people of that ilk. It's time. And then like it didn't work out. But so now he's doing it. He put up like his entire like, I don't know, $28 million ranch or whatever is like collateral for the movie and all this stuff. So like he has other financiers and stuff, but it's like largely like self-funded. And it just sounds like a clusterfuck of an idea of like, oh, I have an idea for a movie. It's a 12-hour Western. We're going to release it in 4 parts. And it's like, I understand the argument is like, well, they do this with superhero movies. They do this with other big budget movies. It's like, yeah, dude, but like a fucking 12-hour Western, bro? Like, really? But then I saw the trailer, and I regret to inform you that I kind of want to see it. I like Costner. I like him in most stuff. There's a bit of hubris at play that an actor that old looks like he's going to be clapping some young cheeks in the film. But you have to remember, Kevin Costner made a movie about Wyatt Earp that came out not long after Tombstone. They came out around the same time, I believe. I don't remember the exact timeline. But whereas Tombstone is like a pretty like focused, kind of like tight movie that has Wyatt Earp and his family as the main characters. The Wyatt Earp movie that Kevin Costner made is like long and sprawling and follows Wyatt Earp from like him being a teenager to like whenever he dies. And Costner, he's very old now. In that movie, he had to be in his like 40s or 50s, and he was playing Wyatt Earp at like 17 for the first 10 minutes of the movie. And it was just like, okay, that's just who you are, I guess. Wyatt Earp, not a bad movie. Dennis Quaid, I think, plays Doc Holliday in it. It's like fine. It's just not Tombstone. You know what I mean? Tombstone fucking rips. It just does not have the juice the way Tombstone does. But I like Costner for the most part. I think he's a talented actor. I like what he likes about Westerns. Like, I'm not a big Western guy. I don't know a lot about Westerns, like for real. I haven't seen that many of them. But when one's good, I'm into it, you know, and like I think that he has the potential to make a good one. It's like he's reuniting with his cinematographer from Dances with Wolves, and it's got almost as many white character actors as Oppenheimer. Like it's just a whole bunch of white folks are in it. Like Thomas Hayden Church is in it. Just a bunch of fucking people. I like how I can just say Thomas Hayden Church as the only person I name, and you kind of get the idea of who the other ones are. You're like, oh, he's in it. There's 30 other people you started thinking about. They're all in it too. I think Michael Rooker's in it. It's like the least like a crazy person he's looked in a movie in a while, so that's interesting. I don't know. I think it's gonna be cool, and I mean, I don't know if it's gonna be good or not. I have a hard time believing it's gonna be financially successful. The thing is he could have done this as a miniseries for Paramount Plus or some shit, and I think it would have been so easy to make happen because it's like 12 hours. It's like miniseries length, and they you know, he probably would have been pitching this around the time that streaming platforms were still just pumping money into shit like this. So he could have gotten this made probably without having to put up any kind of collateral. And instead he was like, no, big screen only. It's got to be on the big fucking screen. 12 hours? Yeah, on the big screen. You'll do it once a season. You know, every few months we'll get another one out. I respect that to some degree. Like I can't argue against that shit. You know what I mean? Like, fuck, it's what I want to. It's not necessarily that I want to see more like all white Westerns on the big screen, but I want to see stuff that's big and ambitious like this. And I'm a sucker for a rich artist who consistently just takes the money they make and wants to throw it back into their next project. Not to say that, I mean, Kevin Costner's a rich person. He probably spends it on rich person shit too. But I just like, I like, there's something romantic to me about the idea of you make movies and your goal is to just keep making them. And your goal is to make money off of that one, put it into the next one. Just keep going and going and going and like doing what you want to do. Pushing the stories you want to tell and stuff. Like, I think that's cool. There's a whole different conversation about like which stories get to be told, who's allowed to tell them and stuff like that. And like, that's obviously a little bit more complex, but in the macro, the idea of like a filmmaker who I think is cool, being committed to always making his own stories and putting up his own money if need be. I like that idea. I feel like that's kind of what we need a little bit more of. I think it's just cool, you know, like, fuck, what else are you going to spend the money on? You know what I mean? Like, if you like movies that much and you care about movies and that's like your big thing, why wouldn't you just want to keep throwing it back in, you know? I mean, ideally a certain level of wealth, you would want to maybe spend that money on letting other people make movies who don't have that kind of money too. But yeah, I get, you know, doing your own thing too and stuff. So I don't know, I'm kind of excited about it in a weird way. But talking about mavericks spending their own money to tell their own stories, we got to talk about Francis Ford Coppola, who fucking sold his wine empire to finance Megalopolis, a movie he's been trying to make since the early 80s, and that he has actually made. He really made this $100 million sort of like futuristic sci-fi epic. I don't know how sci-fi it is, other than the fact that it takes place in the future. I don't think it's like Dune or some shit like that. I think it's just like a regular sort of like sprawling urban drama that takes place in the future is basically the vibe, I guess. The script, a draft of the script has been available on the internet for like decades. I don't remember what it's actually about. I meant to go find it and read it, but I was like, I'd rather actually just go in blind whenever the movie comes out. Like, I'm really curious to see what he's done. I imagine he's rewritten it several times since then. But it was supposed to come out early this year, and now it sounds like Megalopolis is going to be coming out in the fall, and then it's going to be getting a special IMAX release. And the idea of Francis Ford Coppola, one of our greatest filmmakers, making a late period comeback that he's essentially self-financed and getting to put it on IMAX screens, that's what dreams are made of to me. That's the stuff. This guy who spent a very long time doing work for hire shit because of just how much money he blew on his idyllic utopian movie studio. You know what I mean? The man that brought you like one from the heart is back to give another one from his heart. And there's not even a trailer yet, but it's got Adam Driver and a bunch of people in it. It sounds like a good movie, I think. It sounds like it's going to be really cool. A friend of mine worked on the film and said it was like actually pretty exciting, and he has good taste, and I don't feel like he has a reason to lie. And I'm excited about it. And I'm again, it's like, I love hearing stories about like, yo, this motherfucker's been trying to make this movie for like almost as long as you've been alive, in some cases longer than you've been alive, and they're finally doing it. in some cases, when those long gestating dream projects come out, they can't match the ambition and stuff, or like what people have built it up into their heads to be over the years. But I still want to see it. I don't even care if it's good. I'm happy that it's going to exist, and that we can see it and consume it and see how it goes and stuff. Like, I'm very, very looking forward to that. It's also cool too, because as this is happening, Christopher Coppola happens to be like slightly more in the public eye again, just to talk about it. So, you know, doing like Reddit AMAs and like answering questions on like Instagram and shit like that. So like, I always think it's cool. We're gonna blink one day and wake up, and like Quentin Tarantino is gonna be like the oldest living filmmaker. You know what I mean? Like, we're gonna blink, and a lot of these guys from the 70s are just gonna be gone, unfortunately. So I really kind of want to, you know, treasure them while they're still here. But I guess we gotta talk about the biggest thing that happened like right before I started recording. When I talked about it was a leap year. February 29th is like most canonically considered to be Superman's birthday. Like, there's been different dates that have been used for his birthday, but I believe February 29th is like the one that's like most agreed upon, or the one that DC recognizes, or at least recognizes as a great opportunity to email you to fucking buy the graphic novel to Kingdom Come or whatever. But it's Superman's birthday today, which is cool. I like the idea of Superman, a character who never seems to age, having a leap year birthday. I think it's funny. It's also the first day of production of Superman, the new James Gunn film, because James Gunn took to Instagram to show the first, I guess you can't really call it the first image. It's like, it's just an image of the chest emblem, the chest insignia, the S, the Superman S. And it's very heavily, it looks like the one from Kingdom Come that Alex Ross drew, only it's got the yellow in it instead of the black. It looks cool. I think it looks neat. And he announced that the movie is going to be called Superman. They're dropping the legacy that he said his first draft, when we started writing it, it was, you know, to him it was called Superman Legacy, but by the time he was done, he knew this movie could only be called one thing, Superman. And it is. It's called Superman. And I, for one, I'm grateful, because I'm so fucking tired of saying Superman Legacy. Not like it's hard to say extra words. It's just, I thought it was a dumb title. And I'm glad they cut it. I thought it was just fucking stupid. I thought it was really just kind of a dumb title to have. And maybe once we see the final film, it will make more sense. But for now, the fact that that's over, basically, it's now just called Superman, I think it's cool. There was a little bit, there's something else. So I kind of knew going into today, there had already been rumblings on the internet and from in the know scoopsters and folks like that there was a good chance they were going to do a suit reveal today. And people were kind of anticipating, I think, kind of when they revealed the suit for the Batman, they had that like little thing that Matt Reeves put on Vimeo, just revealing the costume with the red lighting and stuff. And that was like a really cool moment. But I think that took place like a month into filming. This is like day one. They would have had to have shot just a thing with the suit to have done that. And I don't think that's something Gunn really wanted to do. And I don't remember, he talks on the internet so much about all these things. There's so many like posts on threads and whatnot, but I thought I saw someone say that he didn't want to actually do a full suit reveal until principal photography was done. But we'll see what ends up happening, depending on what kind of buzz they have to generate for this thing or what have you, or whatever the PR strategy is. But I'm excited. I think it's going to be, I hope it's going to be good. I don't know if it's going to be good, but I hope it's going to be good. I like the new title, but it's just interesting how much like information there is about this as it's going, because every little thing that comes out, people just start spamming James Gunn. Like, is this true? Is this true? Is this happening? I heard that this was happening. And he, for the most part, has actually been taking the time to like debunk stuff as they come. And like, I even saw something where they were talking about how the movie had like this a crazy budget. Like they were saying the movie was going to have like a $360 million budget, just production budget, not even like including P&A and stuff, which is kind of wild. And then Gunn was like, that's not true. Like, how would they even know our budget? Blah, blah, blah. But then like, no, the person that initially was reporting it was reporting that number based on like Ohio tax filings that WBD had to file to get tax credits in that state for shooting there and stuff. So like, essentially, if that journalist who did this legwork is wrong, he's not wrong because like he's a bad reporter. He would be wrong because like the studio is lying to the state to get different tax credits. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of, I thought it was a little bit weird of the things that Gunn has had to debunk or say that's not true, that's not happening. I thought it was funny that he had to be like, that's not our budget. And it's like, well, did you guys lie? Did you guys lie to the government to get money from taxpayers to make a movie? Because I feel like that might be more concerning than like someone, from capemovies.com leaking this. I think that's a little bit more concerning if you're just lying for tax purposes. Not that Gunn is the individual specifically doing it, but I'm just saying it's a funny idea to me anyway. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I hope it's good. I love Superman quite a bit. It's one of my favorite characters in fiction history. I don't love him quite the way I love Batman, but I love him a lot. And it would be nice to get a good Superman movie. It would be nice for someone to be able to come out. And I want to be clear. I've been a pretty strong, and I like to think rational defender of the Snyderverse. I haven't threatened anybody with death or anything, but I happen to like those films for the most part. And I like what they ended up doing with them, and I like the where Snyder went, what he was interested in and stuff. But that said, I still would like to get one Superman movie in my lifetime that that isn't the Christopher Reeve movies, that feels the way Superman has always felt to me. Like, I liked Henry Cavill. There's stuff in Man of Steel that I grew to like that I didn't initially like, but it's still not. I don't even want to say it's not my Superman, like exactly what I want. I mean, I would like a movie that's at least in the realm, that makes me feel the way the best Superman comics make me feel. And I want to believe that James Gunn is doing that. I want to believe that he cracked it and figured it out. I feel a lot better now the movie's not called Superman Legacy, because again, I thought that was a dumb fucking title. But it's just a title. It's just a name. So I guess we'll have to see. Let's see. I mean, they haven't made the movie yet. They just started filming today. So we'll see. We will certainly see. All right, that's enough of the news. Let's talk about what I watched this week. I want to be clear. They didn't watch fucking much of anything, to be entirely honest. I had a list of stuff I wanted to watch that I didn't get to, but here's what happens on most days when I want to watch a movie. Is I'm like, I kind of want to watch this. I kind of want to watch this. I'm kind of in the mood for this. Maybe I'll watch this. Maybe I'll rewatch this. What ends up happening is that I end up on TikTok, and then I end up seeing goofy shit on TikTok, and then I get sucked into the vortex of the For You page. And lately what has been happening to me, because I keep... It's like, it's not like the algorithm is like this independent entity that's like fucking me. It's like, it's responding to what I do to it. So I keep responding extremely positively every time there is like some kind of meme video from fans of Metal Gear Solid on TikTok. So TikTok regularly just feeds me, edits of cutscenes from Metal Gear games set to music and like jokes and stuff. And every time it happens, I end up just watching a bunch of like videos about Metal Gear Solid on YouTube. So this happened to me like a year ago or so. I got really heavily into Metal Gear, even though I've never played a single Metal Gear game. I'm not a gamer person, really. I don't really play a lot of video games. But Kojima is just such a fascinating figure to me, and the lore of these games is insane. So the number of explainer, playthrough, video essay type content I've seen about this video game series that I have never once played, like a single moment of ever, has just been really consuming. And like, I'm just really, I'm really into it. I think it's very fascinating. I've been obsessed about the idea of what a Metal Gear movie would be like, which seems nearly impossible to do, but it could happen maybe somehow. So like many of the times this week where I could have watched a feature film, I just watched cutscenes from Metal Gear 5, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. That's just like what I do now. That's like, I guess, who I am now. It's like, aren't you a film critic? Don't you watch movies? I do, but sometimes I just watch punished Venom Snake smear the ashes of his fallen soldiers onto his face to the point that he looks like he overdid cocaine. I watch videos like that. I make themed playlists on Apple Music of what I think the Diamond Dogs would listen to. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just, I think about Outer Heaven a lot. I don't know. Like, it's this very weird thing, because like I know a bunch of people, so many of my friends, like when they find out that this is the thing I've gotten into, who've been like trying to talk to me about the games as a person who has played the games and knows this stuff very well. And I'm like, no. I don't know this shit that well. You have to talk to me like I'm a weird guy who has like a hyperfixation. Like that's how you have to accept that is not, I don't have anything more to offer than that. I've seen a lot of very funny things about this or very interesting things about this, or, you know, so someone's like, oh yeah, like remember this one mission that was like this. I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that, but I saw this really funny thing of Big Boss fighting Shadow the Hedgehog. I don't know. Have you seen that? And it's like, oh, this is just like mental illness. And it's like, yeah, no, it's that's what it is. Not as many movies, lots of Metal Gear lore videos. But I did watch one thing, which is I finished True Detective season 4. I had only seen the pilot, which I talked about some episodes ago. And I got the first episode of season 2, I think I talked about it. And I was like, I'm kind of into this. I don't know. And then I kept seeing friends' reactions every week when I was ready to catch up. And I would see people just not really being hype about it. And I was like, too many people who I know and respect don't seem excited about this. It's giving me no reason to need to go back and watch it. But it was over, and Alan Sepinwall had like a really positive review about the finale and calling it the best finale in True Detective history, which is, I mean, it's fucking 4 seasons of television. It's not that crazy, but that made me want to finally finish it. So maybe they pulled it all together. And it was hard, actually, to binge the remaining 5 episodes of the show because I like the show, but it does not have... Maybe if I'd stuck with it week to week, it would have been different, but it's not a show that, like, is... I think I've talked about on the pod before, at least in the channel, that, like, I really only watch TV in binge format. Like, I have a hard time watching something week to week unless it is, like, monstrously good. So like Succession, I watched week to week. The last season of Better Call Saul, I watched week to week. But or like I did that with the last season of Barry too, I guess. But like in general, I'll get into a show and I'll just watch all of it, and then I'll move on. Like I don't really do the week to week thing anymore. But what I'm also discovering is that if I try to watch something that's only 6 episodes, that's like the sweet spot for me. Like 6 episodes, that's just like 6 hours. It's like 2 long movies. It's not that much. But if I'm watching something that's only 6 episodes and by episode 3 I'm not compelled to make it to the end, not a good sign. You know, like I talked about Monsieur Spade and that I liked that, and we talked about that a couple episodes ago, and our last episode, I guess. And it's a good show. Like I recommend it. I know it's not for everybody. It has like a very specific, I think, niche appeal. But again, that was a show I liked, but it still didn't have that thing that makes you like. When I watch serialized content, I love the feeling of I can't put this down. It's like if I'm reading a book, I love a book that I'm going to read in one sitting or like all day. I'll just sit in a chair all day and read it. Or like comics. Like if there's a comic I really like, I love reading like 4 trades in a row. You know what I mean? I like being able to just like go and go and go and go deeper and deeper and stuff. Anytime I'm into something serialized and I hit a point where I'm like, I can take a break. I don't care. I'll get back to this later. It's not that means it's bad or that I don't like it, but it's just like, for me, for my consumption habits, for what I personally enjoy, I need this. It has to be like, I fucking have to get to the bottom of this. I have to see how this ends. And True Detective Season 4 has a lot of things that I like in it. I like Jodie Foster's performance quite a bit. It's nice to see her getting this kind of lead. I like... a lot of the cast is very good. Like, even someone like John Hawkes, who's kind of playing a little bit against type, is quite good on the show. And, it's like, well, it's well cast. It has a largely good like tone. But I think Issa Lopez, I mean, the show is very successful. It's apparently more watched than like any season of True Detective previously, which is crazy to think about. And season 5 is coming, and Issa Lopez is coming back as like the showrunner and director and writer. And she has a writing team, but she's largely writing it, and she's also directing it, which the show has never had before. Season 1 was Nick Pizzolatto wrote all of it, but then Cary Fukunaga directed all of it. And a lot of people kind of cite him for season 1 being so good because of like his energy behind the camera. But then season 2, they brought in Justin Lin to direct it, but he only did like 2 episodes. And then season 3, they brought in Jeremy Saulnier to direct it, and he only did a few episodes, then like butted heads with Pizzolatto. So then I think Pizzolatto himself directed some episodes. I think Daniel Sakai maybe got brought in too. But this is the first time there's been like, Pizzolatto directed episodes, but he's not someone you would consider to be a director. He's like a writer that got to direct because he's the creator of the show. This is the first time it's had like someone directing and writing the show, like sort of like as a closer to like a writer-director auteur type. And that's like sort of a good and bad thing about the show, which is that on the one hand, it feels like the visuals and the tone and everything are like in concert with the writing in a way that's different. But on the other hand, it's like certain things about the writing of the show are also things that I don't like about the direction of the show. So it's like good that it's like a unified vision, but it's also like, but this unified vision. And I didn't really feel not necessarily negative about her approach to the show, but the fact that like after the first episode, there was already this prevailing narrative of like, oh, all the bros hate it. And Nick Pizzolatto himself was being kind of negative about the show, which I thought was kind of shitty about a show. Like, your name is still fucking on. But the fact that she was kind of leaning into that stuff, and like that any kind of criticism that anyone sent her way on social media, she was like justifying. No, like there's a whole controversy about a character having like a poster, like a band poster in their wall that they clearly just made AI art for. And she tried to argue that was like on purpose and there was a reason for it. And it was like, just fucking, you got caught using AI art in a lazy way that everyone says AI art should not be used. Don't try to pretend like, no, this is part of it. This is like part of the deal. Like, this isn't fucking Twin Peaks. Like, this is a cop show. Like, you weren't making, it more surreal by having AI art for a post. Everything about it was just kind of like, I didn't get that. But the show itself, my main reasons for not being as crazy about it is like, the show's called Night Country. The big pitch is like the entirety of the season takes place during the time where it just stays night in this part of Alaska. Like, this town, it's just night for, I don't know, like a week or whatever the fuck. And like when the show ends, it ends like in the daylight. It becomes day again. And that, I mean, the two main pop culture touchstones I think of for that type of that idea is 30 Days a Night, the horror movie based on the Steve Niles comic, which does a great job of using the idea that the sun is not going to rise for a month to make vampires seem scarier. That was a great concept that Niles came up with. And then Insomnia, the Christopher Nolan movie that I've talked about on the pod before. And that's like the opposite. It's just daytime for a very long time, and how hard it is for this guy to sleep because the fucking sun never goes down. And I think that Insomnia does this really good job of telegraphing to the audience what time of day it is, even though it doesn't look like it. So like everyone else in the town still has like routine. So yeah, the sun is up, but for them, this is 3 o'clock in the morning, or this is 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And in Insomnia, you can clearly tell what is what. And it's Al Pacino's character who is the one who was like disoriented, right? In True Detective season 4, like, it's always night, but they never really make you feel like, oh, but this part is day. This is the day part of night. It's daytime, even though it looks dark outside. It just all feels kind of like one night. And I understand that you could say, oh, that's part of it. Like, it feels like, that's what it feels like when the sun doesn't come out. And I'm like, yeah, but like, you feel disoriented and fucked up in Insomnia, but you still know what's going on. Like, it's a fucking procedural, so it's kind of necessary for there to be a certain level of legibility and clarity for it to like function. And I felt like True Detective Night Country uses it being night as like a not to its full potential. Like, I don't feel like they explored it well enough or made it a part of the fabric of the show in a meaningful way. So that part of that kind of irked me. And then the main thing that I have an issue with is like, I thought that the things that were callbacks to season 1 of the show were like really lazy and like not useful. Like, I understand that they thought it was like a cute, fun thing to have like a character be, Cole's like dad. You know what I mean? Like, I get that people like they thought that was a cute thing, or like having a character in the finale literally say time is a flat circle and shit like that. Or that wasn't the finale, it was one of the episodes. I just thought that stuff was like pointless, because like there's been other little things in the other seasons that like loosely suggested that these all things took place in the same universe, but it was much more like, oh, every season the thing it has in common is that there's these detectives, and the case they're trying to solve is connected to a larger sense of corruption from people in power, which I think is a pretty good trope in film noir. Is like, you know, sometimes the case leads to like the highest people, and then those people make it impossible for justice to happen. So the fact that multiple seasons allude to or connect to like these powerful forces behind everything, that is good. That's part of, I think, one of the things that should be a constant in the series. And then this season does that too. Like, I think that's also an important thing to be connected to. Like, yeah, you know, there's a level of power and malevolence that comes from these corporate forces or political forces or whatever that are kind of behind stuff. What I didn't think was necessary is that, like, the show is like called like a supernatural noir or something, and it's like in every other season, the supernatural side of it is like a vibe. It is like an energy. It feels kind of otherworldly and dark and doomed and all those things. But functionally, every season comes to end up being like based in reality. There are things that make the show feel more fantastical or feel like something more sinister is at play. But that's just the feel of it, you know? Season 1, I felt like didn't stick the landing very well with that, and I thought that that's why it was kind of unsatisfying for some people. Season 2 is a different story. I thought season 3, it's very interesting in the way it plays with like memory and stuff like that. Like, that's like the parts of the show that feel eerie because the main person's whose perspective you're in is like can't trust their own memories and like their own, you know, cognitive abilities and stuff. And the fact that David Milch was like helping Pizzolatto to write that season while he was like right around the time I think he had like become diagnosed with Alzheimer's and stuff. So like, this is some stuff that was probably very personal to him and what it was like for him. That stuff is really great to me. I think season 3 is super underrated. But like all the supernatural shit that they weave into this season, and then they kind of take. So there's two like I think warring approaches to having a show that has a controversial element of the supernatural, and they both trace back to Damon Lindelof. So it's like when you watch Lost, there were people that watched Lost who didn't care necessarily about the sci-fi fantasy elements of it, and they really just wanted to know about these characters. They cared about the characters, and that was the most important thing. They didn't give a shit about the fucking polar bear or the island disappearing or what's up with the statue with the 3-fingered foot or whatever the fuck. They didn't care about that stuff. And there are other fans that cared about that stuff above all else. They cared about the lore and all that shit. And I guess you could say the same thing about like the X-Files is kind of like that. There are people that just like the freak of the week stuff, and there's people that cared about like the actual history and mythology of the show. But with Lost, they reached a point of that series where like, look, the people who cared about the regular character stuff all kind of left. So anyone who was left by season 4 is just, you're here for this shit. We can go full bore into the mythology stuff because that's all that's left. And I think that's a big reason why the show is so unsatisfying to the casual people who came back for the ending. Because it's like, yeah, the show turned into not being for you at all anymore. And that's okay. You left anyway. But I felt like Damon Lindelof learned his lesson from that when he did The Leftovers, which is, for one, a much shorter show, which is helpful. And it's a show where they weave in 2 equally believable and acceptable readings of what's going on, and one involves the supernatural and one does not. And regardless of which one speaks to you personally the most, the show still works. And I think that the finale of The Leftovers is so moving and meaningful because you can read it one way. You can read it this way that like weaves in all the stuff that's been teased throughout the series, and it can be very satisfying. Or you can read it the other way, that none of that shit even matters, it isn't real, and it's still satisfying and emotionally powerful, right? I feel like True Detective Night Country goes for that, but I don't think they did a very good job of it, because it just feels kind of like a weird cop-out to me, and it just feels like there was just too much of that stuff. Like they leaned... I sort of assumed the entire... I just realized I've done a very good job of not spoiling the show at all, so I'm not going to start. But I sort of thought that there would be some kind of definitive way to explain some of the more supernatural elements of the show, where if you wanted to believe it was like supernatural, you could, but then if you wanted something that was a little more concrete, you'd have that too. And instead they went the route of like, it's up to you. What do you think? Da-da-da. And I was like, nope, I hate that. I don't care. Whatever. So like, it just kind of, it's a pretty satisfying finale. Like they actually answer a lot of questions well. It comes to a head pretty well. There's good moments. I think it's pretty well done. I think they stuck the landing in a way where like True Detective is great, and the ending is kind of whatever. This is like the whole show is fine and the ending's pretty good. It's like maybe the best thing about it is the ending. So like I don't know what they're gonna do in her next season. I hope that they kind of learn from this one, but I have a feeling they're probably gonna double down on stuff I didn't like. I don't really care one or the other. I'll probably still check it out. I like stuff with cop solving mysteries in it. It's like I'm a sucker for that. But yeah, it's True Detective season 4. I don't know that I recommend it. I mean, like if you started watching it, I guess you should probably finish it. But if you haven't, you don't really have to bother. You can do that at some other point. I don't feel strongly enough to really say one or the other. But that's all I watched this week. So we've got time for a few questions. Okay, so this first question is from Justin, and my friend Justin, and this is something that's been coming up in our conversations a lot, which is anytime we talk about the new DCU and James Gunn and stuff, I always end up saying something pithy and petty about James Gunn being a weirdo. And he's like, he had multiple times, he's like, I really hope James Gunn makes you eat your words. I'm like, I hope so fucking too. But Justin asked, what would James Gunn have to do to earn your full confidence in his DCU? And that's a good question. I want to say that it's not like I think he sucks or isn't going to do a good job. I was very, 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 very pro Guardians 3. I thought it was a fantastic movie. I was really, really... That actually gave me more confidence in him doing this than anything else has, to be entirely honest. Because other than the Guardians movies, specifically the third one, there's not a lot of other Gunn stuff that I'm that crazy about. Like Suicide Squad was cool. I thought it was fine. I wasn't crazy about it, but I liked it. I hate the movie Super. Like I just don't like it. I don't really care about Slither. The Dawn of the Dead remake is good. Like I like Gunn, but I'm not like crazy about him, if that makes sense. For the longest time, my biggest memory about James Gunn was when I was at MorrisonCon and he and Max Landis were arguing on this panel about superheroes in the media, about whether their respective movies were superhero movies. Like James Gunn was arguing that Super was not a superhero movie, and then Max Landis was saying it was, but that Chronicle wasn't a superhero movie. And then James Gunn's like, well, if my movie was a superhero movie, your movie is definitely a superhero movie. And it was pretty early in the morning, and I was very hungover because this convention happened in Vegas, at like the Hard Rock Hotel in Vegas. And every night of the con, you would just get shit-faced. Like I remember getting really drunk and talking to J.H. Williams III, the artist who has done a lot of great stuff, but like Promethea, those really good Batwoman comics with Greg Rucka. It was a really cool experience, I'll say. But I'm saying that those two guys were there, and like they were so fucking annoying listening to them talk to each other that like it really soured me on Gunn for a very long time. It's a very silly reason to not like a person, but anytime I would see his face in an interview, I would just imagine like being hungover and like everything out of his mouth just feeling like a hammer to my skull. So like that soured me on for a while. And then the first Guardians movie I liked, but I wasn't crazy about. And then people talked about it like it was the greatest thing ever, and that made me like it less. And then I liked Guardians 2, sort of, but also was kind of not crazy about it. But then 3 really made me eat my words. I thought 3 was maybe one of the best things maybe the best thing he's ever done, actually. So him doing the DCU, I'm not like against it. I think it's really cool. I think he gets superheroes. I think it's nice that they're going to have someone who is like actually a nerd who cares about this stuff, like, and not someone like Snyder who was like more interested in appealing to like regular folk. I think that Gunn is going to try to do both. He's going to try to have his cake and eat it too, and I think that he's capable of doing that. Obviously, he made regular people give a fuck about Rocket Raccoon. That's a good start. But the jokes that I keep making about him all boil down to the fact that everything that he laid out in his like slate of like Volume 1 Gods and Monsters of the DCU is like it feels to me so much damage has been done to the DCU brand in movies. Not even necessarily, there's been a bunch of bad movies. It's just like the releases have been strange, all the tinkering from the studio, all the false starts, and there's a lot of stuff that's made it not very smooth. And even though I like many of those movies, like the movies themselves, like the overall brand image is like super tarnished. So I feel like whoever is going to come in and fix this has to like really go hard and like really, really kind of like wipe the slate and do something brand new. And the first thing that they're doing is like the fucking Creature Commandos thing. And then like the fucking shit with, it was like, oh, Metamorpho's going to be in it. Like, I don't know. This isn't a big deal, I guess, but it's like the minute James Gunn was like, I'm making a Superman movie, Metamorpho's in it. I was like, fuck, come on, man. Because he's that kind of nerd where like there's certain types of things that are going to be things he really likes that he has to have in the movie. And at least it's James Gunn. So the things that he's nerdy about are like things that are kind of charming. It's not like, like if you let Joss Whedon do the X-Men and he just made Kitty Pryde like a fanfic insert love interest and shit like that, it's different. But what's gonna take is I'm gonna have to see Superman. I'm gonna have to see that first movie. That's what it's gonna take. Like I'm gonna have to see that movie, and that movie itself will have to win me over, and then I'll be on board for anything else. I'll be willing to give it. I'm gonna give these things a chance anyway because I want them to succeed ultimately. But until I get through that movie and see exactly the way he's put all this stuff together, to me, it still has a high potential of being a fucking disaster. I think it'll, at the very least, be a good movie. But until I see it with my own eyes, how he decided to have Metamorpho in this fucking movie, until I see how that's making sense, I need to I'm going to be a little bit hesitant. Because it's just, the big thing is like, I don't know what the end game for this is. And there doesn't have to be an end game. I personally would be fine if they were just making a bunch of movies that were all cool and interesting on their own. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be building to something bigger. But I know the expectation from most fans is that it will be building to something bigger. And based on this initial slate, I don't know what that is that they're going to be building to. I don't know how long it's going to be until we get a Justice League movie. And then when we get it, is Gunn going to do it himself? Is he going to maintain kind of being like the main guy for this? Like, is he going to be the architect, but then also directing a lot of these things himself? And if not him, who are they going to bring in? Like, who has the caliber and scale to make a Justice League movie other than Gunn at this point that would like really, really matter, really be someone people would be excited about? So I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'm genuinely rooting for him. I want it to be good. I want it to go well. So for me, it really just boils down to, I got to see Superman. I got to see the actual movie itself. The trailer's not going to be enough. I got to go in the movie. And if I leave having a good Superman feeling about it, I'll make my entire personality defending James Gunn on the internet. I will 100% if he gives me a good Superman movie, I will defend it with my life. I love Superman. I've wanted that for so long. If I get that, any other weird thing he does, I'll be cool with. Like if I come out and they're like, yeah, he's doing a Booster Gold movie and this is happening, I'm like, all right, cool. Whatever he wants. It's fine. It's okay. I support him. Whatever he wants to do. That's kind of what it's going to take. Thank you, Justin. It was a really good question. And thank you for calling me out for being so repetitively and casually critical of this dude who has done nothing actually to give me a reason to think it's going to suck. I'm just silly. I'm a silly goose. Greg asks, oh, my beard. We know that most American video games movies are bad, usually because they're made by people who don't understand the material and or don't care. Are there any video games that are a good fit for movies that haven't been made, or existing video game movies that could have been good? Example, I think Monster Hunter could have been a lot better if it had not been made by Mila's wife guy, which I think is a funny way to refer to Paul W.S. Anderson. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not enough of a gamer guy or into games to be able to, I already obviously said I think a Metal Gear game would be a movie would be really cool. Hard, but cool. I do think it would be cool if at some point we'd ever gotten a Final Fantasy movie that was actually Final Fantasy and not Final Fantasy The Spirits Within, where it's just a sci-fi movie that has the Final Fantasy title. Specifically, if they made a movie about Final Fantasy VIII, because it's the only game I've ever actually like and I really liked the iconography of it, and I think that that dude's jacket is really cool, and the gun that is a sword is really cool. So my reasons for why I want that to be a movie are very dumb, but I think valid. And no, I think a big part of it is just that like people, there are some video games that are very clearly heavily inspired by movies, and many of those I think lend themselves to adaptation better because the people behind them are using and trying to evolve film language to fit how video games work. Because in a way, there's things you can do in a video game that you could never do in a movie. You know what I mean? So like you can take cinematic language and really, really push it and really do things with it. It's one of the reasons I'm so fascinated by Kojima. And like me and my friend Cody were just talking about the other day about Death Stranding because he was finally playing it and he was trying to explain it to me and it was giving me a headache. So I just went and like spoiled the entire plot to myself on Wikipedia. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. No idea how that's going to be a fucking movie, you know? But then it started making me think like, you know what though? I don't care if it's a bad movie. I want to see them try to make that a movie. I think his ideas are so cool. So, I mean, yeah, Metal Gear and Death Stranding. Definitely want to see movies based on those. Again, having never played them, but just reading about them on the internet a lot. And then in terms of like existing video game movies that I think could have been better, like I really felt that new Mortal Kombat could have been a lot better. I defended it upon first watch because I thought it was fun, but the more and more I distanced myself from it, the more I was like, that was pretty disappointing. Because like the original Mortal Kombat is not far away from being a good movie. I think there's really cool shit in it. I thought this could have been like that, but better, and it just kind of wasn't. We'll see what the sequel's like, I suppose. But yeah, I do think I think a lot of it really boils down to like if the game has like some sort of like energy or story that is mappable to the film experience, then you can make a good adaptation of it. I think if the lore is too complex or if there's anything that's really, really detailed and minute where people are going to nitpick it and want it to be something that it's not, I think that's not going to be conducive. So I think you really have to pick something that's like they're making an Uncharted movie. You know what I mean? Like, the actual set pieces in that movie are cool because they're just essentially like ripped from the cutscenes in the game or whatever. But in that case, you're watching Uncharted and you're like, okay, this is just like an Indiana Jones thing then, because certain games feel like they're just such and such movie, but in a game space. So when you take it back to movies, you're like, oh, this is just like that movie they were inspired by. So like I'm less interested in things like that. I am much more interested in stuff like Metal Gear Solid, quite frankly, where it's like it's a synthesis of so many different influences, and then so many of the mechanics of the story are weaved into the experience of playing the game and you, the player's role in the story being told. That stuff I think is harder to map to a movie, but I do think it's still worth trying. You know what I mean? And very few video game movies, I think. Okay, I'll give you an example. I wasn't really crazy about the Dungeons and Dragons movie that came out this past year. I thought it was fun, but I'm not a big D&D guy, so I didn't have the same kind of connection to it. But there's a bunch of things in that movie that really popped all my friends that play D&D because they really baked into the structure of the movie, like the way things work in D&D and stuff. And like, if you're into that, like there's like an extra layer to the film for you. I wasn't, so like I had to like look at that stuff online. But that type of thing where you're like really trying to rethink, it's like, you think about like Watchmen, like the Zack Snyder version, how like the better parts of Watchmen are when Zack is not trying to do an exact shot for shot replication of stuff from the comics, because that story is so good in the comics because it was designed for the medium of comics. So you have to look at the medium of film the way Alan Moore was looking at the medium of comics to do a good adaptation of it. If you're just porting stuff over one-to-one, it's not going to fit. I think that's sort of a guiding principle for if you're going to adapt a video game movie or a video game into a movie, is you have to be cognizant of the differences in the mediums, and you have to keep that at the forefront of your mind, you know? So yeah, thank you. Good question. And then finally, we have a handful of questions from Tony. Tony asks, what's the easiest position to work in the movie theater? Has a customer ever left behind something, left behind something weird in the theater that you've worked in? What is your favorite concessions to eat besides popcorn when you've missed a meal? And then, would you still work in a movie theater if you had some other form of income that supported you? Okay, so I'm going to answer all four of these questions because at this point, I feel like if you listen to the pod, like me working in a movie theater and running one is like a pretty big part of what I do. As big, if not bigger, than being a film critic. So I'll go one by one. What's the easiest position to work in the theater? So most people, I think, that work at most like floor staff employees in movie theater probably all agree that like ticket taking is probably the easiest because it kind of has the least amount of physical labor involved. Like you're just kind of standing there, you're tearing tickets and you're pointing to people where to go. But like, it's also very boring. Like taking tickets is like extremely boring, and you come into contact with everyone that comes into the door. So here's the thing. If you work box office, people don't have to buy tickets to the box office. If you work concessions, people don't have to buy concessions. Everyone has to go through the ticket taker. So you actually do, even though it's like less labor, you interact with more people per day than any other position. And sometimes it's fine, sometimes it's not. So, you know, like the percentage of decent people to monsters fluctuates, unfortunately. So sometimes being at tickets is just like boring, isolating, and then you talk to every single fucking person that comes in, and it can be a lot. Like sometimes it just gets annoying too. At the number of times someone's like, "Can I come out and come back in?" Like, yeah, what am I gonna do? Lock you out of the fucking building? Yeah, you can go to your car. Yes, you can go to the bathroom. Relax. Concessions is the hardest position, but it's easier in the sense that if it's busy, the day goes by faster if you're concessions. Like rushes hit very hard and very fast. So like you can blink and then a long time has gone through, you know what I mean? Me personally, I fucking hate being behind the concession stand. I've been doing it for so long and like I'm good at it or whatever, but it's like anytime I have to go back there, I'm always very mad. I'm always like, I should have scheduled more people today. Cause like a lot of times my personal philosophy is like, I need to set up this building today in a way where I don't fucking ever have to go back there. I don't want to be near the fucking popper. I've done my time in the trenches. I just don't want to. But my actual personal favorite, like, you know, I'm a manager now, but like if I have to cover someone for a break, my favorite place to go is the box office. And that's mostly because you do deal with people, but you deal with less of them because some people just go to the kiosk, some people just buy stuff online. And then it's also the one place where like you get to kind of, I used to work at a video store, and working at a video store, the most fun was like people asking you about movies. So at the box office, some people just walk up and they don't know what they want to see. So you have to talk to them about the movies, and that's fun. So like, even though some of those people are really ridiculous and ask stupid ass questions and sometimes very nasty and rude, sometimes you get to just talk to somebody about a movie and explain why you liked it or why you think they might like it or why they might not like it. And I like to think I have a pretty good track record of like figuring out what someone will or will not like. Like sometimes I can just look at someone and know they're not gonna like a movie, and they'll be like, "Is this good?" And I'm like, "I liked it, but I don't think you will," you know. And they'll be like, "Yeah, okay, cool, I'll watch this." And like, it's sometimes it's nice. So yeah. Actually, I guess maybe the harder one than concessions is ushering, depending on how busy it is. Like, because the theaters can get so messy and so filthy. I remember I was the night I found out that I was getting a promotion at a movie theater. The first time I became a manager, I was the only usher on a Sunday night, and then not a big fan of it. And they told me I got the job. And I remember I was sweeping and cleaning in this theater, and I was so naive. I was like, "Man, I'm gonna be a manager. I got to fucking clean these theaters anymore. I'm moving on up." And maybe like a week later, I was a manager, and like there was a tight turnaround between a busy show. And sure enough, I had to go in there with the broom and clean. It was like, you never stop doing, no matter how far up you move, you never stop doing all the other jobs. You still end up doing them anyway. So it was very funny that one night in summer 2010, I was like, "No more sweeping for me." I've done a lot of sweeping in the last 14 years. So, other part of the question. Has a customer ever left behind something weird in a theater? Yes. People leave behind weird shit all the fucking time. People leave their phones all the time. People leave their wallets all the time, their keys all the time. The other day I had a lady call and she had lost like a makeup bag, but she wouldn't call it a makeup bag. She was like, "It's a little bag." I was like, "It's like a wallet." She said, No, it's this." I was like, "What? Okay, well, what does it look like?" And she kept being really cagey, and she was like, it's like a makeup bag. And I was like, and then I found it. I was like, "Oh, it's a makeup bag." And she was like, "Yeah, it's fine. I'll come pick it up." But she seemed so like she did not want to acknowledge it was a makeup bag that made me think she was hiding something in it. I didn't go through it because I don't care. But she definitely had like drugs or something in that bag that she did not want anyone to. She didn't want anyone to look into the bag, I think, was a clear thing. I can't understand another reason why a grown woman in her 50s would be like ashamed to admit that she had a makeup bag unless she was like had pills in there or something. Years ago, I would say this is like 2011. I had a friend named John who worked at the theater, and he was a magnet for weirdness. And I remember, I'm not going to tell a bunch of John's stories because they're his to tell and he tells them better than me. But one specific one I'll say that I think encapsulates how weird it can get is John was greeting people into a theater. Like he was nearby because the show was about to start. He was waiting for everyone to get in so he could close the doors as the trailer started. And a lady came in with her boyfriend, and she was kind of like flirtatious with John, even in front of like her boyfriend. And some people are just like that. It was whatever. But afterwards, John was also the person that went to clean that theater when it was over. So when they were leaving, the woman like kind of like winked at him in a like kind of a weird way. And when he went to clean the auditorium, she had left her panties in the seat. Just left her panties for my friend, the usher. So, that happens. Stuff like that happens quite often. That's not even that irregular. I have probably worse stories, but I know that I should tell them. Favorite concessions, food besides popcorn. So here's the thing. Half of the year, or maybe 75% of the year, I will not fucking touch popcorn. The smell of it is always, I always smell it no matter where I am. People are like, oh, do you smell the popcorn? I'm like, I always smell popcorn. And then there's like 25% of the year, this is all you eat sometimes. Like you just eat that all the time. Like it's normal. It just feels natural. My favorite thing to eat, at my theater is just like chicken tenders because they're the most regular meal basically. But if I go to other theaters, I'm much more of a I really like pretzels. We changed our pretzels recently because of supply chain issues, and I fucking hate them. But I used to be a big pretzel person. I don't have pretzels almost ever anymore, but they used to be one of my favorite. Sometimes you just have a shift where you didn't bring food. You're sick of all the food nearby. You don't want to order something because it's just going to get so expensive. So sometimes, you just go get a pretzel. That's nourishing. And then the final question, would you still work in the theater if you had some other revenue that you could mostly support you? Here's the thing. Fucking no. If I could sustain myself not working this job, I would not work this job. But I do think if I'd reached a level of financial security to where I had good money from something else, not necessarily if I was rich, but if I had some kind of, I don't know, I not if I was rich, but if I had enough money to take care of myself and didn't have to have a day job, and I also knew people of the investor class, I could definitely see trying to help run a movie theater recreationally, not be the sole owner, but if I was part of me and 6 guys all went in on buying a movie theater or something and having to maintain it, and we didn't actually have to manage it day to day. We were actually just a group of advisors or something for people that really had to do the job. And we were able to set it up in a way where they could be paid and compensated fairly and stuff, and genuinely give them the kind of support that a lot of corporations don't give their employees. That would be cool. I think I would actually enjoy helping a theater exist. Maybe not a big one, maybe just a one screener or something small. That would be a capacity I could see myself still connected to movie theaters in the future. But I know people who've worked at the theater a couple days a week just because they're older and it's something fun to do. That could not be me. I've done it for so long that I could not recreationally do it. My patience is too thin for a lot of direct with the public work. I don't think I could do it without just getting into fisticuffs. But I would like to. It'd be cool to be help run one in different ways. Yeah. I love movies. I love movie theaters. I just probably need a real long break from them. All right. Thank you for the questions, plural. Thank you. All right. That does it for us this week. That's the episode. Thank you all for listening. If you're watching this on YouTube and you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you loved it, please subscribe. You'll be the first to get notifications if you hit the little bell icon anytime I put out a new video. If you have any thoughts you want to share, please put them in the comments below. If you have any questions for me to answer on air, you can put those in the comments as well. If you don't want to put it in the comments, you can put them on Twitter, on Instagram. You can email me at armchairauteur@gmail.com. Any way you want to connect with me, I will answer questions for you. I would love to get more questions. I love answering the questions. They're maybe my favorite part of the show. So don't be shy. I won't bite. I'll just ramble. Yeah. And if you're listening to this on any other podcast platform, in audio only format, thank you. And please, leave a rating or follow and subscribe and share and all that jazz. Yeah, so thank you guys again. Hope everyone's doing well. We will talk soon.